What if Ty never truly left Heartland? What if a part of him is still out there living, breathing, and about to walk right into the ranch? Fans have been heartbroken since Ty's death, but now, clues are pointing to something big, something no one expected. A boy, a child, Ty's child. And believe it or not, the show has been quietly dropping hints all along. It all started with a short clip released by CBC promoting season 19. At first glance, it looked normal: Amy riding across the field, Jack working near the barn, and Lou giving one of her serious speeches. But for one single second, there was a flash of a young boy standing beside a woman near the gates of Heartland. He looked confused and strangely familiar. That second of footage has now sparked hundreds of theories across the Heartland fanbase. And one question stands above them all. Who is that boy? When fans paused the video and zoomed in, things got even more interesting. The child has light brown hair, kind eyes, and a quiet strength in the way he stood. People began comparing old photos of Ty from the early seasons. The resemblance is stunning. It's not just the look in his eyes, it's the way he held his arms, the small frown on his face, even the way he stood near the horses in the background, as if he already felt connected to them. But the trailer wasn't the only clue. In a behind-the-scenes photo posted by one of the assistant directors, there was a small script page on the table. It was blurry, but fans with sharp eyes managed to pick out a line. It read, "Boy, my name is Micah. My mother said this place would know me." That one line sent shockwaves through the fan community. Who is Micah? Why would his mother send him to Heartland? And more importantly, what does this have to do with Ty? Digging deeper, fans uncovered even more. Actress Amber Marshall, who plays Amy, recently mentioned in an interview that season 19 will reconnect Amy to her past in an emotional, unexpected way. When asked about new cast members, she smiled and said, "There's someone new who reminds us all of someone we loved. Many are now convinced this is no ordinary new character. This is Ty's son, a child that no one knew about until now." But how is it possible? Ty passed away several years ago in the show's timeline. Could this child have been born just before or shortly after his death? Or is it something even more shocking, a child from a relationship Ty had before Amy, perhaps while he was working up north or in Mongolia during season 10? The show has always left little gaps in Ty's past. Could one of those gaps be hiding something as life-changing as a secret son? What's even more interesting is how the showrunners have stayed completely silent about the theory. No confirmation, no denial, just quiet smiles and mysterious interviews. And that silence is making fans believe it even more. One post on a Heartland fan forum summed it up best. If this boy is really Ty's, then season 19 isn't just about the ranch. It's about family, healing, and carrying on Ty's legacy through the next generation. That idea that Ty's blood is still alive, that his spirit lives on through a young boy, has given fans hope, excitement, and yes, a lot of tears, because if Ty JRB is truly coming to Heartland, everything is about to change. Amy Fleming learned how to smile again, but not without scars. For years, she's raised her daughter without the man who promised her forever. But just as the silence around Ty begins to settle, life throws her a whisper from the past, one that could shatter everything she's rebuilt. What happens when healing meets a ghost? In the shape of a child? When Ty died, a part of Amy died with him. The man who stood beside her through wild horses, broken bones, and heartbreak was suddenly gone. She didn't just lose a husband, she lost her partner in every sense. And yet, somehow, Amy stood tall. She became the rock her daughter Lyndy needed. She turned grief into quiet strength, into motherhood, into love for the ranch. But even in her calmest moments, the shadow of Ty lingered in her eyes. Over the seasons that followed Ty's tragic death, we watched Amy learn how to survive without him. It wasn't easy. At first, she could barely look at the places they used to go together. The stables, the trails, the ridge where he once proposed, it all became too much. But slowly, step by step, she began to find purpose again. Working with horses brought her peace. Raising Lyndy gave her strength. The support from Jack, Lou, Tim, and Georgie kept her from falling apart completely. Viewers admired her resilience, but they also knew she was still healing. By season 18, Amy had grown into a version of herself no one had seen before. Confident, mature, gentle yet independent. Fans noticed that she had finally found her rhythm. But just as her world felt settled, something changed. In the last moments of the season 18 finale, Amy was seen reading a letter. Her expression froze. She didn't speak. She just looked out the window, heart racing, eyes wide. The show didn't explain it, but fans did. Many now believe that letter may have been the first clue about Ty's son. A message that says, "You don't know me, but I think I'm your husband's child." If that's true, everything about Amy's journey is about to shift. From learning to move forward, to confronting the past head-on. Imagine how Amy must feel. After finally learning how to live again, she's forced to reopen a wound she spent years closing. Could this child really be Ty's? Could the love of her life have left behind something so big, without even knowing it? And worse, what if the boy carries the same quiet sadness Ty did, like a mirror into the past? For Amy, this isn't just about blood. It's about trust, about memories, about deciding whether to open her heart again to someone who reminds her of the deepest pain and the deepest love. And think about Lyndy. She only knows Ty through stories and photos. To her, Daddy is a bedtime memory. But what happens when a boy arrives who shares her blood? Who calls the same man father? Does she feel replaced? Excited? Confused? One scene fans are dreaming of already is this: Amy watching from the porch as Lyndy reaches out to touch the boy's hand. She says, "You look like my daddy." And he answers, "I think he was my daddy too," to children. One past, 1,000 emotions. As Amy stands there, frozen in time, the world she rebuilt begins to shift again. And in her heart, she knows this isn't just a chapter from Ty's life. It might be the beginning of a whole new story for Heartland. The boy's name is Micah. That's all Amy knows at first. He doesn't say much when he arrives, just stands there beside an older woman, tired, quiet, and holding a small bag with worn clothes. It's the woman who speaks. She says she knew Ty. Says Ty helped her long ago, in a small town clinic, when her village was struggling. She says Micah is her son. But then her voice shakes, and she adds softly, "I believe he was Ty's too." The air freezes. Amy stares, speechless. Her heart races, and for a moment, it feels like time has stopped. There's no proof yet. Just a few words from a stranger. But the boy, he doesn't need to speak. He looks like Ty. His jawline, his eyes, the way he watches the horses, even the way he holds his hands behind his back, it's all too familiar. Jack sees it too. Lou can't ignore it. And even Tim, skeptical as always, can't argue what's right in front of him. Micah is shy but observant. He says he's never ridden a horse, but he's drawn to them. One morning, he walks up to Spartan in the barn. No fear, just curiosity. Amy watches from a distance as Spartan lowers his head gently, letting the boy touch his muzzle. It's the kind of moment that hits her deep in the chest. That was Ty's horse. And now this quiet boy is already finding his way into the herd. And into the family. Everyone starts asking questions. Is this really Ty's son? Could Ty have known and never told anyone? Or did he truly never know? Lou searches through old records, emails, anything that might link Ty to this woman. Tim tries to recall stories Ty told from his time up north or during his travels. Georgie, now older and wiser, tries to connect with Micah, hoping to learn more from the boy himself, but it's Lyndy who cracks the wall. One evening, while everyone else is talking in circles, she simply sits next to Micah by the creek. She shares a cookie and says, "You can talk to me. I'm not scary." He laughs for the first time, and that's when he quietly says, "I never met my dad, but my mom said he had warm hands and sad eyes, and he saved her life." Amy overhears. Her chest tightens. That description, it's Ty. Not just in appearance but in spirit. In the way he touched people's lives, healed others, and never asked for anything in return. Slowly, the pieces begin to fit. Micah's age, the timeline, Ty's brief medical work in remote communities. It's all lining up, but proof is needed. Lou insists on a DNA test. Jack stays quiet but watches Micah with a gaze that speaks volumes. Amy doesn't know what to feel. If the test says yes, it confirms the impossible. If it says no, then they've stirred up all these memories for nothing. But deep down, everyone already knows the truth. Micah isn't just any child. He carries something more, something unspoken, a calmness, a strength, a sadness. And something about him, something in the way he looks at Amy when she's not watching says what no one else can say. He's Ty's son, and Heartland is about to find its heartbeat again. Jack's silence said more than words ever could. When Micah first stepped onto Heartland soil, Jack didn't rush to welcome him. He simply stood on the porch, arms crossed, his eyes narrowed not in anger, but in deep, careful thought. Jack Bartlett had always been the family's anchor. When storms hit, he held everyone steady, but this time, the storm was inside him. The boy reminded him too much of Ty. It was like seeing a ghost, and ghosts don't knock on the front door. That night, while everyone was debating the truth of Micah's story, Jack went to the barn alone. He sat near Spartan, looked at the old horse and whispered, "Tell me what I'm supposed to do, Ty." Jack wasn't afraid of change, but he was afraid of watching Amy get hurt all over again. She had just begun to find peace, and now, here was a boy who could turn everything upside down. Lou, on the other hand, handled it like a storm. As mayor, as a sister, and as a mother, she went straight into action. She started asking for documents, searching for medical records, contacting lawyers, digging into public health files from the region Ty once worked in. Lou needed facts. She needed control. Her love for Amy and Lyndy made her fierce, but that same love made her cautious. What if this is all a lie? She asked Amy behind closed doors. What if someone is using Ty's memory to get something from us? Amy didn't answer. She couldn't. Her emotions were too tangled. Every look Micah gave her, every question he asked about horses, every time he mentioned his mother's admiration for a healer with kind eyes, it all chipped away at her doubt. But Lou wasn't letting go that easily. She remembered how long it took Amy to recover after Ty's death. She remembered the pain, the silence, the tears Lyndy never fully understood. "I won't let her go through that again," Lou promised. Tim entered the picture in typical Tim fashion, loud, opinionated, suspicious. "How do we know the kid's not part of a scam?" He barked one evening at the table. "This isn't a movie. This is real life." But even he paused when Micah spoke gently to a nervous colt that wouldn't let anyone near him. Tim watched as the colt calmed under the boy's touch. "Just like Ty," he mumbled under his breath. Despite their doubts, something began to shift inside the family. Georgie quietly observed from the edges, watching how Micah acted when no one else was paying attention. She saw how he helped Lyndy with her homework, how he watched Amy ride like it was the most amazing thing in the world, and how he never asked for anything. He didn't act entitled. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to be near the horses and feel like he belonged. But the tension boiled over one evening. Lou confronted Amy in the kitchen, voice low but sharp. "This child could destroy what you've rebuilt. You don't even know for sure he's Ty's." Amy, hands trembling, turned and said, "I don't need a test to see what's right in front of me." Then she walked away, tears in her eyes. Lou stood there, speechless for once, unsure if she was protecting her sister or hurting her. Meanwhile, Jack went into town. He found the woman who brought Micah and sat down with her in a cafe. They talked for over an hour. He asked questions. She gave names, locations, memories. She told him about the night Ty helped deliver her son in a small clinic, how he stayed up all night with them, how he never asked for anything in return. She said he was kind. She said she never forgot his eyes. When Jack returned to the ranch, he walked past everyone and found Micah brushing a horse. He didn't say anything at first, just watched. Then quietly he said, "Come help me with the hay tomorrow morning. You'll need gloves, it's not easy work." Micah nodded slowly, and Jack gave the faintest smile. It wasn't a confirmation. It wasn't an embrace. But it was the beginning. The family wasn't ready to agree. They weren't ready to trust. But they were beginning to see it. Ty may be gone, but something of him had come home. Lyndy had always been the light that kept Amy going. Born from love, raised with quiet strength, she carried Ty's spirit without ever truly knowing him. She'd seen pictures, heard stories, even watched old video clips of her father laughing beside a horse or holding her as a baby. To her, Ty was a dream, a beautiful one. But dreams don't come walking into the yard wearing dusty shoes and carrying nothing but a name. The first time Lindy saw Micah, she didn't speak. She just looked at him with wide eyes, her braid hanging down one shoulder, her hand still holding a lead rope. Micah stood frozen near the barn gate. He didn't smile. Neither did she. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was something older than both of them, instinct maybe. As if they both felt something was about to change. Amy had planned to explain it slowly, carefully. But children see truth in ways adults forget. That evening, as Amy brushed Lindy's hair by the window, her daughter simply asked, "Is that boy Daddy's too?" Amy's hands paused. For a moment, her breath caught in her throat. "We don't know for sure," she said softly. "But he might be." Lindy didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just looked out the window again and whispered, "Then he's mine too." The next day, Lindy did what no adult could do. She walked right up to Micah as he sat near the corral, holding an apple he hadn't touched. Without saying a word, she sat beside him and took a bite from her own apple. Minutes passed. The wind blew through the leaves. Finally, she turned and said, "Mom said you like horses." Micah nodded. "I never had one," he replied. Lindy pointed to a little mare grazing nearby. "She's new, scared of people. But I think she'd like you." And that was it. A connection formed not through explanation, but through simple, childlike honesty. They didn't need DNA tests or family trees. They just needed each other. Over the next few days, something magical happened. Micah, once quiet and withdrawn, began to open up only around Lindy. He told her about the mountains he came from, how his mother used to braid his hair when he was small, how he'd dreamed of places like Heartland but never believed they were real. Lindy, in turn, shared stories of her dad, how Amy said he was brave, how Grandpa Jack taught her to ride because that's what Ty would have done. She showed Micah where Ty's photo hung in the house, and when he stared at it too long, she gently took his hand and said, "You don't have to cry." "I don't cry either." Not all the time. Their bond grew faster than anyone expected. One evening, as Amy walked into the barn, she found both kids sleeping in a pile of hay, Lindy curled up beside Borden, and Micah resting against a saddle. Amy didn't wake them. She just stood there, heart full and aching, because in that moment, she saw something she hadn't dared hope for. A future built from a broken past. Jack noticed it too. So did Lou. Even Tim stopped questioning the boy's place after seeing him hold Lindy's hand during a thunderstorm. There was something undeniable between them, not just a shared father, but a shared heart. Two children trying to understand where they came from, leaning on each other to figure out where they were going. Georgie, now more like a big sister than a cousin, took both of them under her wing. She taught them how to feed the foals, how to talk gently to the jumpy ones, and how to ride without fear. Micah was slow to learn, but patient. He listened, watched, and never complained. "Just like Ty," Jack murmured one morning as he passed the training ring. For Amy, the hardest part wasn't accepting Micah, it was allowing herself to believe that life could still offer her something unexpected and beautiful. She'd guarded her heart for so long. But when she saw Lindy teaching Micah to whistle the same tune Ty used to hum, she realized something. This wasn't just about healing the past. It was about growing something new. A sister, a brother, a bond born not of explanation, but of emotion, of unspoken understanding. And in their laughter, in their quiet moments together, it felt as if Ty was there guiding them, smiling through the wind. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter for hours. No one touched it. No one dared. It was just a plain white envelope, with the lab's name stamped across the top. But to Amy, it felt heavier than any saddle she'd ever lifted. That small paper held the truth about everything, about Micah, about Ty, about what her future might look like from now on. Lou had ordered the test. Jack didn't argue, though it was clear he didn't like the idea. Amy hadn't even signed the form herself. Micah's guardian had given permission. Still, It felt wrong, cold, like putting science ahead of feeling. But Lou insisted. You deserve to know. And so does he. Amy stared at that envelope as if it might speak first. Her hands trembled. Somewhere outside, Lindy's laughter echoed near the paddock. Micah was probably helping Georgie muck stalls again, always trying to prove he belonged without asking for anything. He never once asked, "Do you believe I'm Ty's?" Instead, he waited in quiet patience, carrying the weight of his mother's story and the burden of doubt no child should ever have to carry. But Amy wasn't afraid of the result. She was afraid of what it would do to her, to Lindy, to Micah. If the answer was no, would she lose him? Could she let him go after everything they had shared in just a few weeks? And if the answer was yes, could she ever look at him and not see the ghost of a man she had once loved with her whole soul? When she finally opened the envelope, she didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just read the result, folded the paper, and set it back down. Later, when Lou asked, "Well," Amy looked out the window at Micah and said, "He's ours." Those two words changed everything. Ty Borden was Micah's father. There was no doubt anymore. Not for the family, not for Amy. But with the truth came a deeper question: what now? Would Amy become his guardian? Would Micah stay at Heartland? Would his mother leave him behind to start a new life elsewhere? Or would this boy, once just a stranger with familiar eyes, now become a permanent part of their world? That night, Amy sat with Jack on the porch. The stars were out, bright and silent. She handed him the letter. He didn't read it. He didn't need to. He just nodded and said, "I already knew." Then he stood, walked into the barn, and quietly saddled a horse for Micah to ride the next morning. But the final choice wasn't scientific. It wasn't legal. It was emotional. Amy found Micah alone that evening, brushing Spartan like he always did. She knelt beside him and asked softly, "Would you like to stay here with me and Lindy?" Micah looked at her unsure. "Would that be okay?" He whispered, "I don't want to be where I'm not wanted." Amy didn't answer with words. She just hugged him tight, full of love, full of sorrow, full of hope. That hug said everything. It told him he was home, that he belonged, that Ty hadn't left them nothing. He'd left them a reason to keep going. The next morning, Micah wore one of Ty's old shirts. It fit awkwardly but proudly. Jack gave him his first pair of real gloves. Lou made pancakes. Lindy raced to sit beside him. And Amy, she smiled, like the sunrise was brighter than ever before. The test gave them an answer, but love made the decision. The sun rose over Heartland with a stillness that felt almost sacred. For the first time in a long time, the ranch didn't just feel like a place for healing, it felt like a place for rebirth. Micah, once just a name from a stranger's mouth, now had his boots in the dirt, his hands in the hay, and a place at the breakfast table. But even as smiles grew stronger and the family softened, one truth lingered quietly in the background. Beginnings are never simple, and they never come without storms. Amy watched him ride for the first time, really ride. Not just sit on the saddle, but move with the horse. The wind tugged at his hair, and for a second, she saw Ty there. Not in the boy's body, but in his rhythm, in his connection with the animal, in the way he didn't force control but earned it through calm trust. Her breath caught. It was beautiful, but it was also terrifying, because now, Amy had something to lose again. Lindy loved her new half-brother in the innocent way only a child can. She showed him her secret hiding spots, shared stories about Grandpa Jack's old boots, and even gave him a drawing of their dad holding both their hands. It was crude and childlike, but when Amy found it tucked under Micah's pillow, she wept. Quietly, alone, pressed against the old doorframe of Ty's room, Jack treated Micah like one of his own, but with the quiet discipline only Jack Bartlett could deliver. No special treatment, no easy rides. "If you're staying," he told him one morning, "you carry your weight." Micah nodded and never complained. He'd never been handed a home before, and he wasn't about to take this one for granted. But outside Heartland's gates, the world wasn't ready to forget Ty or to welcome Micah without questions. Word spread fast in Hudson. A few folks whispered that Amy was making a mistake. Others wondered what kind of life the boy had before. A ranch hand even asked Jack behind his back, "Are you sure he's really Ty's?" Jack fired him the same day. No hesitation, Lou faced pressure from town council members who worried that the family's sudden media attention would impact her work as mayor. "This is a family matter," she told them coldly, "and it'll stay that way." And then there was Micah's mother. She hadn't left. Not yet. She stayed in a rented room in town, watching from afar. She loved her son, but she knew this place offered something she couldn't. Roots. One evening, she met Amy at the ranch gates. She held out a small wooden carving of fox Ty had given her during his medical work up north. "He told me foxes find their way home," she said. "I think Micah just did," Amy nodded. They didn't need to say more. They were both mothers. Both had loved Ty in different ways. But only one of them had a future with his child. As the season edges forward, Heartland stands on new ground. The family has changed. Not broken, just grown. Stronger in some places, still healing in others. Micah's presence is both a gift and a challenge. Every smile comes with a memory. Every lesson carries weight. But there's joy too. Laughter. Hope. Things Amy thought she might never feel again. Will the storms come? Of course. Heartland is no stranger to loss, to hardship, to change. But now, they face it together. With Micah beside Lyndy, Amy beside Jack, and Ty's legacy stitched into every corner of the ranch. They're not just surviving anymore. They're beginning again. And this time it's not just for Ty. It's for the future he never got to raise, but the one he left behind.